Okay.
With your customers out there in the field?
Just as a kind of general rule of thumb, I always like to start at the front with the key in my hand, walk around the other side of the machine, and end up here. Because you give the guy the key, he gets up in the cab and you lost him, and you don't even get to talk about what you want to do. That's just a side note. When you're prepping a machine for demo or delivery, I think it's a good idea to make sure you got the right tire pressure for the job you're going to be on. That tire pressure can cause that machine to buck or hop, whatever your term is, depending on the kind of work you're going to do with it. And in a lot of cases, 1 PSI can make a difference. And if you're the bumpy and jerking machine on demo day, it's a good chance to lose the sale. And tire pressure can affect the outcome. So I'd like to start up, have a little less or a little more. Right on. Well, your load's out front, so a lot of times you're going to have more PSI in the front and a little less in the back. The back serves as a little bit of cushion, and a lot of times that back tire pressure is where you get a lot of the bounce.
Too high back up.
The other thing you might remember too, if you're buying bias power apply tires, they're more forgiving than a radial tire. Put radials on it. If you don't have that tire pressure right, I guarantee you think he's slapping his head on both sides of that can. So that's another thing. Always about radial tires. So we always.
One thing to keep in mind, guys, is we talk about tires, whether bias ply or radial tire. A bias ply tire, the sidewalls are always stiffer than what a radial tire is. They just when you hit something rough going over a rock or anything, it just won't take that pounding on it. Also, keep in mind too that if you make sure you're going apples to apples. If you have a machine that does not have ride control versus another machine you know has ride control, when they get in there and start operating the machine side by side, the one that's got the ride control is always going to win hands down. And most applications, most manufacturers, the ride control is all optional. Again, with Doosan, our ride control is optional as well. And what it does is the ride control would take, it's a accumulator system working through the hydraulic system right on the boom. So if you see a machine that's going down the road bucking, you know he does not have any ride control on it. If it has it, it'll just be a smooth ride. Now, if you have a machine that has no ride control and it's got bias ply tires on it versus the competition running radial tires with ride control, he'll beat you hands down every time. So make sure you go apples to apples. Very important when you do that. Or better, you know.
The other thing you might want to think about if you're going on a demo, and I was talking to Donovan about it earlier, is you want to be sure you go see what they're going to do. I mean, if you're going to go out there and you're going to load out of the bank, you don't want to go out there with a cutting edge. Now, if they're out there just backfilling a ditch, cutting edge is fine, but Find out what they're doing, so when you get out there, the other guy comes out there with the wrong cutting edge and the wrong, without teeth on it. So that you're the one that's going to be set up correctly. It's little things like that on a demo that really make a difference in the way you show it.
And then going back to tire type and how to choose, again, application specific. Bias tires are more puncture resistant. Radials, they give a better ride because of the sidewall flex in the tire. Radials retain, because of that little better ride, you retain more material in the bucket. Radials are better in soft underfoot or slippery type conditions because of the fact more tire stays on the ground. What am I missing?
That's about it.
This is Doosan's general purpose bucket. None of our machines are sold with a bucket. They're all less a bucket. If you order a Doosan, this is what you're going to get, a general purpose bucket with a 3-piece bolt-on reversible cutting edge. The bucket is punched. You'll see when you walk around, you'll see some vacant holes. They're already punched for the tooth and adapter setup. If you wanted to switch out, it's not a problem.
One thing I do want you guys to keep in mind of, especially when you're looking at these buckets and you're determining, and we all know that you have bucket manufacturers that you guys are comfortable with, that you use, but don't ever take the Doosan bucket lightly. It's probably one of the most well-built buckets that you'll find out there. Well-built side construction, heavy steel, completely wrapped around underneath for the skid protection on the bottom. So it is a well-built, heavy bucket. But there again, you guys out there, manufacturers, you're comfortable with them. There may be some price issues you have there. There again, that's between you and Myers. But don't ever take the Doosan bucket lightly if that's what you have to choose from. They're a good bucket.
Our pin and bushings up front, the bushing type, for those of you that sold the Mega, the bushings and pins they're 10% larger in diameter, creating more surface area, allowing for greater wear or wearability. And the bushing has been changed to a centered fine mesh bushing. The fine mesh is the grease path. Instead of the old swirly looking figure 8 shape that was like a 1/4 of an inch in width, now you've got, it looks like expanded metal, just really a fine expanded metal that serves as the grease path and allows more grease to get on the whole surface of that bushing and allowing for extra wearability. Two is a Z-bar loader. It's referring to the dual boom cylinders and single bucket cylinder. We also offer a high lift, which is the same setup but with longer arms. A lot of times that's an agricultural application, but if you had a certain hopper that was trying to be filled like at a ready mix plant, if it's a certain height, sometimes there's a need for a little extra reach. And then we also make a tool carrier version, which is a parallel linkage. When a parallel link lifts, that's what you might put forks on and see in a specific material type of application. As that machine lifts, the load stays more or less level throughout the cycle, versus this, you would have to manually, if you put forks on here, you'd have to manually in the cab adjust so that level the load stayed level the whole way coming up. The tool carrier version also allows for a little better visibility down to the front because you get rid of that bucket cylinder, and now there'd be one mounted on this side and one on the other, and you've got a straight view down to the attachment or the work. And if you have a guy that maybe runs a broom and a bucket and forks and he needs to see what's going on in this area, that would be the purpose for the tool carrier.
So this one can't have buckets in it.
It won't keep that parallel lift like in forks where you come up all level.
It'll come up like this with tool fuel carrier. But if you have forks on that, it's going to come up. You're going to have to manually keep it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not.
You know, the skid steer, they call it bucket positioning. But
Right.
Yeah.
You're saying this one, you don't do that.
You can. You can. Don't think you can't put a set of forks on. But where he has the comfort in that parallel lift, where it's no worries, it's just pick it up and it stays level. And this one, if he's curled back a little bit when he goes up, it's going to level out a little bit, just like that. Or he may be too far forward, he may dump a load then. So he's just got to adjust it. Versus a true Bluetooth
It's common all the way across the line. Caterpillar, same way.
Is it very common as far as people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a bucket style forks being used to level?
Well,
Yes.
no, because they're used to not every guy that's working in oil fields has got a tool carrier. They're used to using it.
They'll take this bucket off with their pin on forks and they're gone.
Most of your utility guys, a lot of those guys are going to we got two reasons.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Back for a lot of them will have a material handling when they're set.
Before I do that,
Go ahead.
Doosan wheel loader is standard with the auxiliary valve, and to show you where that's at, when you walk by, you'll look up here underneath these hoses. There's another block that has nothing, no hose attached to it. That's where our auxiliaries come out. If all the functioning that's required in the cab is there, you can deadhead that control and hear it working. It's just there's nothing hooked up. So if you wanted to run a grapple, all you have to do is buy the lines to plumb down to the grapple, and it's ready to go as a grapple machine.
One thing I do want to talk about, there's a lot of guys that I talk to, salesmen out there, they say, well, if I want to hook up my quick coupler, I'll just run it to that third valve. Well, you can, but you're going to be wasting a whole third function. Best way to do is run it off of your bucket side for a quick coupler, and then run the switch in the cab, just a quick switch in the cab where you just disconnect on the bucket and going back into it, and don't waste that third function in case you want to hook up a broom, a quick coupler, a grapple or anything like that.
Yeah, you can buy there's a little motor. It's actually a little motor that runs hydraulic. It has a little hydraulic pump in it. Just got a little switch in there. You install that. That's what will open and close your pins for your quick coupler. And that's like you said, if you want to lose your... And there's several of them out there you can buy, so you don't have to go to just one area.
This portion of the fender, the black, is optional. This is your base fender right here, just the metal. And we do offer a full fender option, front and rear, that'll encase the entire top half of the tire and wheel. There's two AC filters, one for outside air and one for recirculate, so it's basically like your modern car or truck. So it's a pressurized AC system. Filter air. It's pretty simple to get to. What am I missing?
Yes, that's the biggest thing in here. A couple things to keep in mind. With your AC controls or AC filters in here, most of this in here is your access to your fan motors, and also to your wiring harness on your switches. Keep in mind, any Doosan machine you buy, whether it's a wheel loader or an excavator, that any option that is listed in the price page, what I'm saying is a standard option, the wiring harness is already there. So if you have just say a beacon light, if you have a blank switch a blank spot on your panel, pop that out, put your switch in there. You have to buy the switch, but when your technicians go in there to hook that switch up, the wiring harness is already there and at the light as well. I had some people say, well, I don't want it at the rear of the machine, the strobe light. Well, then just take that harness and move it wherever you want it. If you want it up top or down it on some people, counties are different way where they put them. But just keep that in mind. It is a good selling feature across the board on your other manufacturers. I can tell you, again, I can only talk from my experience from Caterpillar, John Deere. You buy optional, something optional to Caterpillar, you buy that option, you buy the harness, you buy the switch, you buy it all. So just keep that in mind.
From a maintenance standpoint, we've got remote ports for your diagnostics so that you don't have to tee into a line. Your check plugs are already here. You just need the hookup for your hoses and your gauges, and you do that right here. Another thing about maintenance, daily maintenance, the easier you make that to be accomplished, the more likely it is to get done. So pretty much everything is remote port as far as grease fittings. If you can't reach it from standing here on the ground level, we bring it to you, such as this grease bank here that handles the bucket cylinder, and then here the center joint and
Oscillation.
the oscillation joint, thank you, is right here at a remote port. Again, making it so the guy doesn't have to lay on his back and pump the grease gun while he's underneath the machine.
And these right here will go to your front center bearing on your front drive line, and also to your two front steering cylinders. Right here, you got one here, one grease bank here, and one grease bank there. And then the rod end is here, and I'm saying this. Sorry, this is greasing the barrel end. So right here, and everything here, like Brian's talking about, goes to the rear. Technician having to crawl on the machine to grease it or in it, those days are over. But now, do not take for granted all other manufacturers have that. They don't. Just like you probably see on all this other equipment, like the remote grease points on the excavators. Not every manufacturer's got that, and they don't have it here, and they do not have the test ports here where they can tie in and get their pressure readings for the hydraulic transmission and other readings that they need as well. So don't take it for granted that everybody's got it. I've heard some comments as you've been walking around at the looking at the equipment, evaluating it, and I've heard it several times since being with Doosan. Your steering cylinder rods are small, okay, compared to the rest of the manufacturers. Maybe one thing, we have not had steering cylinder failures. We're not bending any rods. And the main reason for that is they're both cushion cylinders on both directions. So it takes that cushion. Those cylinders are not slamming all the time. You got a cushion into them. If you go into a hard turn, you'll feel that cushion going into the turn. So that's the reason. Again, guys, you'll have your competitors say, "Well, look at the small cylinders on there." Well, first show me one that's been failing, that you've been breaking rods, bending rods, and tell me, and have them tell you if their cylinders are cushioned. You know, just understanding that part of it. We have not had any cylinder failures, and the machines. The only thing that we're working on right now that's in the steering issue with ours is you get into maybe a jerky situation. When you go into a turn, you feel it jerk, and that's in our amplifier valve. That's being addressed right now. But as far as cylinders themselves, it's not an issue. Let me say this thing to all this as well. Especially with Komatsu, you'll get into bidding situations where in the bid it'll say 2 doors that open 180 degrees. This right here is considered a door that opens 180 degrees. So if you're asked that in the bid, it is went through bids. We just got a bidding in Chicago for the city of New York was 120 units. That was excavators and wheel loaders. Chicago was another 100 units to the cities, governmental institutions, with that in the bid. So keep that in mind. You say, well, we don't have Komatsu really through their brochures is a full opening door 180 degrees. This is a full opening 180 degree door. Okay?
For the engine compartment access, I think you might have noticed we have a pretty decent layout as far as being able to get to all your maintenance items. and most of your daily checkpoints are from ground level. We use a lot of sight glasses instead of dipsticks or other measuring devices for oil levels.
Well, a double-walled muffler leads to the quietness of the machine, or brings the decibel level down. So double-walled muffler, again, your heat exchanger at the top, where it actually pulls that heat out of the engine compartment. This is wastegate on the turbo. And there again, that takes a load off that turbo when it's winding down, coming off at full RPM. And one other thing here is these are the covers I was telling you about on either side, just the wing nuts, you take them off, and then it gives you good access, especially since we made that fan well, it will swing out, and he can have good access front and back to clean the radiator out, to blow it out. Also, all your Doosan, all DL wheel loaders, Doosan wheel loaders, are hydraulically reversible fans. You can see it in the, I think Case has got a reversible fan. I don't think the Komatsu is reversible on that one, but they have the option, but it's not standard equipment. One thing, if you ever look at the comparable machines,